Hi everyone. ഇന്നത്തെ വീഡിയോയിൽ നമ്മൾ ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത് NTA UGC നെറ്റ് ഇംഗ്ലീഷിൻ്റെ ഡിസംബർ 2020 ആൻഡ് ജൂൺ 2021 സൈക്കിൾസ് മേർജ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുള്ള എക്സാമിൻ്റെ മോർണിംഗ് ഷിഫ്റ്റിൻ്റെ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസും ആൻസേഴ്സും ആണ്. NTA ആസ്പിറൻസ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾ NTA എക്സാം എഴുതിയിട്ടുള്ളവർ അതിൻ്റെ റെസ്പോൺസ് ഷീറ്റ് ഡൗൺലോഡ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഇതിൻ്റെ സ്കോർ ഈസി ആയിട്ട് മനസ്സിലാക്കാനായിട്ട് പറ്റും. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഏത് പാറ്റേണിലുള്ള ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് ആണ്, അതിൻ്റെ ആൻസേഴ്സ് എന്താണ് എന്നൊരു ഐഡിയ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് കിട്ടും. ആൻഡ് നമ്മൾ ഈ ഒരു ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ പേപ്പർ, അതായത് ഈ ഡിസംബർ 2020 ജൂൺ 2021 മോർണിംഗ് ഷിഫ്റ്റ് ആയാലും ആഫ്റ്റർനൂൺ ഷിഫ്റ്റ് ആയാലും നമ്മൾ ജനറലി ഈ ഒരു ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ പേപ്പേഴ്സ് എടുക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ അത്ര ഈസി ആയിരുന്നില്ല എക്സാം. ബട്ട് സ്റ്റിൽ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഡയറക്റ്റ് ആയിട്ട് ആൻസർ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്ന ഒത്തിരി ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് നമുക്ക് ഇതിൻ്റെ അകത്ത് കാണാം. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഡയറക്റ്റ് ആയിട്ട് ആൻസർ ചെയ്യുന്നതിനോട് കൂടെ തന്നെ ഇൻഡയറക്റ്റ് ആയിട്ട്, അതായത് ഇൻഡയറക്റ്റ് ആയിട്ട് അവർ ചോദിച്ചിട്ടുള്ള ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് പക്ഷെ നമ്മൾ വളരെ ജനറൽ ആയിട്ടുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങളിൽ നിന്നാണ് ചോദിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നത്. സോ നമുക്ക് ഈ ജനറൽ ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു കാര്യങ്ങൾ അറിയാവുന്നവർക്ക് കുറച്ചൊരു തിങ്കിങ് കപ്പാസിറ്റി അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു തിങ്കിങ് എബിലിറ്റി ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് ഡിറൈവ് ചെയ്ത് എടുക്കാനായിട്ട് പറ്റുന്ന ആൻസേഴ്സ് ആയിരുന്നു ഇത്തവണത്തെ എക്സാമിൽ കൂടുതലും ചോദിച്ചിരുന്നത്. ആൻഡ് അതുപോലെ തന്നെ നമ്മൾ NTA ഫോം അല്ലെങ്കിൽ NTAയുടെ ഒരു പാറ്റേൺ നമ്മൾ നോക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ 2020 2019 എല്ലാം നമുക്ക്, അതായത് ഡിസംബർ 2018 ശേഷം നമുക്ക് കാണാൻ പറ്റുന്ന ഒരു പാറ്റേൺസ് ആണ് ക്രോണോളജിക്കൽ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ്, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ അസേർഷൻ റീസൺ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ്, സ്റ്റേറ്റ്മെന്റ് ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ്. അതെല്ലാം ഒരു ലാർജ് നമ്പർ ഓഫ് രീതിയിൽ ഇത്തവണത്തെ എക്സാംസിനും ചോദിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. മോർണിംഗ് ഷിഫ്റ്റിനും ആഫ്റ്റർനൂൺ ഷിഫ്റ്റിനും ക്രോണോളജിക്കൽ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസും അസേർഷൻ റീസൺ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ്, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ജിംഗിൾ അപ്പ്, അതായത് മിക്സിംഗ് അപ്പ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള മാച്ച് ദ ഫോളോയിങ് ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ്, അങ്ങനത്തെ ഉള്ള ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് എല്ലാം നമുക്ക് ഇത്തവണത്തെ എക്സാംസിനും ഒരുപാട് കാണാം. ആൻഡ് ഇനി നമ്മൾ നെറ്റിന് വേണ്ടിയിട്ട്, അതായത് അടുത്തൊരു നെറ്റിന് വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് നമ്മൾ പ്രിപ്പയർ ചെയ്യുമ്പോഴത്തേക്കും വൺ തിങ് ദാറ്റ് യു ഹാവ് ടു കീപ്പ് ഇൻ യുവർ മൈൻഡ് ഈസ് ഒരു ലിറ്റററി സെൻസ് നമുക്ക് വേണ്ടത് ആവശ്യമാണ്. അതായത് ഒരു ലിറ്റററി ഹോൾനെസ്, ഒരു ക്രോണോളജിക്കലി പഠിക്കാനായിട്ടും ലൈക്ക് റാൻഡമായിട്ട് പിക്ക് ചെയ്ത് പഠിക്കാതെ ഒരു ക്രോണോളജിക്കൽ പാറ്റേണിൽ പഠിക്കുന്നതായിരിക്കും കുറച്ചുകൂടി പ്രിഫറബിൾ. അതായിരിക്കും നിങ്ങൾക്ക് കുറച്ചുകൂടി സ്കോർ ചെയ്തെടുക്കാനായിട്ടും എളുപ്പം. കാരണം ഡയറക്റ്റ് ആയിട്ട് ചോദിക്കുന്ന ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസിനേക്കാൾ കൂടുതൽ നമ്മൾ ഡിറൈവ് ചെയ്ത് ആൻസറിലോട്ട് എത്തുന്ന ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസിൻ്റെ ഒരു പാറ്റേൺ ആണ് ഇത്തവണയല്ല, ഒരു 2018 ഡിസംബർ, അതായത് NTAയുടെ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസിലെല്ലാം നമുക്ക് കാണാൻ പറ്റുന്നത് ഈ ഒരു ഡിറൈവിങ് ഒരു നോളജ് ആണ്. സോ അങ്ങനത്തെ ഒരു രീതിയിൽ നമ്മൾ പ്രിപ്പയർ ചെയ്യുന്നതായിരിക്കും എപ്പോഴും നല്ലത്. So the first question, potato is a 16th century borrowing into English from. So the options are French, German, Norwegian and Spanish. So you can expect such questions because in the previous years you can expect like the origin of a French word or the origin of a Danish word. So here the question is regarding the word potato, and we know the correct answer is option D, that is Spanish. So now moving on to the next question. Which of the following poems by Robert Browning contains the lines, "Our interest on the dangerous edge of things, the honest thief, the tender murderer, the superstitious atheist"? So here in this question you have to identify the poem in which these lines appear. So we know about Robert Browning, he's a Victorian age poet, and we have given the options: A Death in the Desert, Bishop Logan's Apology, Count Gismond and Love Among the Ruins. So here the correct answer is Bishop Blogam's Apology, because here we know that the lines, "Our interest on the dangerous edge of things, the honest thief, the tender murderer, the superstitious atheist," these all appear as the lines of Bishop Blogam's Apology. So the correct answer is option B. Now next question. Which of the following novels has its epigraph taken from the Kada Upanishad? So this is related to Indian literature, but you can identify this question from the answer. So even if you don't know such detailed about Indian English literature, you can answer this question if you know about this British literature. And here the options are A Room with a View by E.M. Forster, Point Counterpoint by Aldous Huxley, The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells, and The Razor's Edge by Somerset Maugham. And the correct answer is option D, that is The Razor's Edge by Somerset Maugham. So that's why I said even if you don't know much detail about the Indian English literature, you can answer this question if you know about Somerset Maugham or this British literature. So the correct answer is option D, The Razor's Edge by Somerset Maugham. Now, moving on to the next question. Arrange the following characters in their chronological sequence of appearance. Arrange the following characters in their chronological sequence of appearance. Mirabell, Shylock, Jimmy Potter, and Sir Epicure Mammon. Mirabell, Shylock, Jimmy Potter, and Sir Epicure Mammon. So we know about the different characters. So if you want to answer this question, the first thing that you have to do is to identify the work in which the characters appears. Okay, for example, we know about Mirabell, we know about Shylock, about Jimmy Potter, Sir Epicure Mammon. So these characters are really famous. So first you have to identify the works, and then you have to identify these works with their fellow writers, and then find the year of their publication, and then you can derive the answers. So here these are the options given. So from here you have to choose the correct option. So here the correct answer is option B, that is B, D, A and C. So we can say that if it is B, D, A and C, Shylock, Sir Epicure Mammon, Mirabell followed by Jimmy Potter. And we know that Jimmy Potter, he appears in Look Back in Anchor, which is a postmodern work. So here you can, and Shylock, it is a Shakespearean character. So from the works, it actually ranges from Shakespeare to postmodern age. So you have to identify the answer, and the correct answer is option B, B, D, A and C. Now, moving on to the next question. This is a match the following question where the list 1 contains the novels and the list 2 contains the authors. So, in the novels you can find Don Quixote, Zorros of Young Werther, Lost Illusions and Epitaph of a Small Winter. And in the authors list you can find Machado de Assis, Honor de Balzac, Goethe and Miguel de Cervantes. And also among this you can find that all these writers, they belong to this European literature. And if you match the following with the correct answers, we know that Don Quixote, it matches with Miguel de Cervantes. Don Quixote is written by Cervantes. Sorrows of Young Werther, it is written by Goethe. And Lost Illusions is written by Balzac, and Epitaph of a Small Winter is written by Machado de Assis. So here you can find that the correct options are A 4, B 3, Z 2 and D 1, and therefore we can find these as an option D. Okay, so the correct answer is option D. Now, moving to the next question. This is a chronological question. That's why I said in the beginning of this video that you have to study everything on the basis of the chronology, because this is the second question that comes from this chronological sequence. Arrange the following plays in the chronological sequence: Sergeant Musgrove's Dance, The Playboy of the Western World, Look Back in Anchor, Man and the Superman. So all these questions, all the works, it is either from the modern age of British literature or postmodern age of the British literature, and you have to identify the writers, and then you have to identify the years in which they are published. So this is regarded to be a quite difficult question, because you have to know the author, you have to know the publication date, and again these all works belong to almost the same century, and therefore it would be really difficult if you are not that good with numbers or not that good with years. Anyway, let's look at the answer. Look at the options. So these are the options, and the correct answer to this question is option D, that is D, B, C and A. Man and Superman, The Playboy of the Western World, Look Back in Anchor, and Surgeon Musgrave's Den. So that is the chronological order in which the work is published. So the correct answer is option D. Okay, so let's move to the next question. Which two works in the following list are written by Aphra Behn? Okay, so you have to, so this can be considered to be a very direct question because you know the works of Aphra Behn. Aphra Behn is a very famous Restoration Age writer. Well, you have to, if you look at the LMS section, you can find that we have given the detailed notes of each and every works of Aphra Behn. So this can be considered to be a very direct question, and you have to identify the correct options. So Rover, Oroonoko, Soldier's Fortune, and the Princess of Cleve. Rover, Oroonoko, Soldier's Fortune, and the Princess of Cleve, and where you have to identify the correct options. Okay, so we have the options A and B only, A and C only, B and C only, and B and D only. So we know about the works of Aphra Behn. So Rover and Oroonoko. So these are the two works written by Aphra Behn. So the correct answer is option A and B, and which comes as the option A. Okay, so the correct answer is option A. Okay, now moving on to the next question. Charles Lamb. So we know about Charles Lamb. He belongs to the Romantic Age of British literature, and also this actually comes in the genre of non-fiction. So we know that when NT revised the syllabus, the fourth module, it has become short stories and non-fiction. So these all belong to the genre of this non-fiction, and you can you can get and you can expect in the future exams a large number of questions that comes from this non-fiction, including the magazines, journals, because even in this exam you can find a sufficient number of questions that were asked from these journals, magazines, and such types of non-fiction works and essays. Okay, so here you have to identify the answer. Charles Lamb used the pseudonym Elia because you have heard of this title, Essays for Elia, written by Charles Lamb, and we know about the pseudonym Elia. Writing in which of the following periodicals? Athenaeum, London Magazine, the Edinburgh Review, and the Quarterly Review. So we have given the names of 4 periodicals, and you have to identify the periodical in which Charles Lamb used the pseudonym Elia to write his work. So the correct answer is option B, London Magazine. Charles Lamb was associated with London Magazine, and that is in London Magazine that he used the pseudonym Elia. So the answer is option B. Moving on to the next question. Which of these questions would cultural studies be most interested in asking? So this is a general question regarding cultural studies, and we know that cultural studies is actually a module that was recently added by NTA in December 2018, and this question is like nothing particular but a general question from cultural studies. So who decides what is to be produced? Who can afford the artifact? How is the artifact marketed? And what is the register of speech in the artifact? So here we know that the questions that are commonly asked or interested in asking in cultural studies would be: who decides what is to be produced, who can afford the artifact, and how is the artifact marketed? And option D would not be that an interested question in cultural studies. So you can say that the correct options would be A, B, and C. And if we check at the options, A, B, and C comes as option B. So the correct answer is option B. Now, which of the following poems contains John Donne's famous conceit, bringing a parallel between lovers and the hands of a combus? Okay, so this actually comes from the unit 2, that is poetry, and you can find that this question, or we know about John Donne, he belongs to the Jacobean and Caroline age of British literature, and this is again a direct question because John Donne, his poems and the conceits in which especially the conceit of a combus is regarded to be one of the primary example to explain the concept of conceits, and therefore this can be considered to be a very direct question. So the correct answer is option A valediction forbidding mourning, because we know that it is in this poem that he speaks about the separation of two lovers, where he uses the metaphor of this lovers and the hands of a combus. So the correct answer is option A valediction forbidding mourning. Who among the following belong to the Chicago School of Critics? Okay, so in our video section, we have already discussed about this Chicago School of Critics. So this is again another direct question that was asked from literary theory, and we know that the primary or the most important personality who belongs to this Chicago School of Critics is R.S. Crane. So again, this can be considered to be a very direct question because R.S. Crane and his works on the Chicago School, that is considered to be the magnum opus of this particular institution. So Chicago School of Critics, the important personality is R.S. Crane. So and apart from R.S. Crane, you can find the other writer who belongs to this Chicago School of Critics is Elder Olson. So R.S. Crane, we know it's a must, and the other person is Elder Olson. So it is Crane and Olson who belongs to this Chicago School of Critics. So that is option A and C. And if we look at the options, A and C comes as option A. Okay, so the correct answer is option A. Now, which two of the following are highlighted in relation to specific historical moments by Stephen Greenblatt? So we know about Stephen Greenblatt. He belongs to New Historicism in literary theory, and this question is regarding the ideology and the concepts propagated by Stephen Greenblatt. So the correct options are, the given options are crisis of meaning, circulation of meaning, production of meaning, and deferral of meaning. So these are the correct options: crisis of meaning, circulation of meaning, production of meaning, and deferral of meaning. So if you look at here, we can find that the correct answer is circulation of meaning and production of meaning. Circulation of meaning and production of meaning. So the correct answer is option B and C, which comes as option B. Now moving to the next question, Virginia Woolf's Orlando opens in 1588 and Orlando, a 16-year-old boy, writes a poem called The Evergreen Tree, The Magic Tree, The Oak Tree, The Poison Tree. So we know about Virginia Woolf. She is a modern age British writer, and in this question it asks about her work called Orlando, and the question is about the poem written by the 16-year-old titular character, that is Orlando. So the correct answer here is option C, that is the oak tree. Okay, so the correct answer is option C, the oak tree. Now moving on to the next question, what function of English is exemplified by the use of English in India as a link language along with a first language by stable bilinguals in well-defined social context? So this is actually a question that belongs to the module language and pedagogy, and here this speaks about the function of English. Okay, it actually speaks about the different functions of English, and we have also discussed that in our videos. So the options are auxiliary, complementary, equative, and supplementary, and the correct answer is option B, complementary, because complementary is actually used to be the link language along with the first language by state bilinguals in a well-defined social context. So the correct answer is option B, complementary. Okay, so now let's move on to the next question. So this is again a match the following question where you have to identify the playwrights with their corresponding plays. So we have the Bertolt Brecht, Tennessee Williams, Václav Havel, and August Strindberg. So here this is again a mix of the modules. You can find European questions, European writers who belong to the European literature, and also Tennessee Williams, who was a Victorian age writer. So you can find such different writers, and then their plays. So we have Bertolt Brecht, Tennessee Williams, Václav Havel, and August Strindberg, and the plays are Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, Life of Galileo, Miss Julie, and Temptation. So these are the options, and if you look at the answer, we know that Bertolt Brecht, he is the author of Life of Galileo. He can be matched with Life of Galileo, and again Tennessee Williams, he can be matched with Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Okay, and this can be considered to be a direct question because all these writers are famous and all the plays are also famous. They're famous works, and except Václav Havel, who might not be that familiar with some of the students, all the three writers, Brecht, Williams, and Strindberg, all of them are famous, and even the works are also considered to be their magnum opus. So this again is another very direct question. So Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, written by Tennessee Williams. Then we have Václav Havel, who has written the work Temptation, and August Strindberg, who has written the work Miss Julie. So if we look at the correct options, we can find that A, can be matched with 2, B can be matched with 1, Z can be matched with 4, and D can be matched with 3. So the correct answer is option B, A2, B1, C4 and D3. So the correct answer is option B. Now let's move on to the next question. Choose the correct right chronological sequence of the publication of the following book. So again, we can find a chronological questions, and this is regarding the publication of the following works by different feminist writers. So we have Margaret Atwood, Alice Walker, Doris Lessing and Toni Morrison. So all these works are feminist works, and you have to identify the correct order of their publication. So we know that among here the first work to be published would be Doris Lessing's The Golden Notebook. Doris Lessing's The Golden Notebook, and followed by Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. So that would be the second work after Lessing. And then if you look at the next work, it would be Alice Walker, The Color Purple, and finally Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. So if you look at the correct options, we can find that it is C, D, B and A, and it comes as the option C. So the correct answer is option C. Okay, now moving to the next question. This is regarding literary theory. So we have heard of Erich Auerbach's Mimesis. Okay, this is a very famous essay, that is Mimesis, the representation of reality in Western literature, and this was actually a work that was published in 1946, and you have to identify the last chapter of this book. Okay, he has given 4 works, and here the last chapter, this actually is an example of intertextuality where he makes a connection with one of the following novels, and you have to identify it, and the correct answer is option C, that is Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse. So that is the correct answer, option C, Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse. Okay. Now coming to the next question, which 2 of the following stage directions are from Harold Pinter's The Birthday Party? So recently we did a video on Harold Pinter, and that too about the birthday party, because this actually appears as a very must question, because in the June 2020 question paper you can find total 3 questions, 2 from the morning shift and 1 from the afternoon shift, that comes from Harold Pinter's work. Okay, and therefore Harold Pinter's The Birthday Party, it's a very important work when it comes from this net perspective. So here you have to identify the 2 stage directions related to Harold Pinter's The Birthday Party. The living room of a house on a seaside town, the garbage pail on the ground next to the porch steps, a light shows from the upstairs bedroom, lower floor windows being dark. He hangs the drum round his neck, taps it gently with the sticks, then marches round the table beating it regularly. So here these are the correct options that's given: A and C, A and D, B and C, C and D. So from here you can find that 2 of the statements are right, and we know that the living room of a house on a seaside town, that's a correct statement when it comes to Harold Pinter's birthday party. And again the next one is, he hangs the drum around his neck, taps it gently with the sticks, then marches round the table beating it regularly. So the correct the correct options are A and D, and this comes as an option B. Okay. So the next question again is a match the following question. You can find a number of match the following questions in this particular series. So match list 1 with list 2, where the list 1 is the writers and the list 2 is the books, and all the writers, they belong to Indian English literature. So it wouldn't be that a difficult question. We can say that's a direct question. So we have Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, and you can match it with Raj Mohan's Wife, because Raj Mohan's Wife, it is the first English novel written in English, written by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. And then Untouchable, written by Mulk Raj Anand, okay, and which was published in the year 1935. And then we have Panchkore Khan, and Panchkore Khan, he is the author of The Revelations of the Orderly. And then we have Kamala Satyanandan, and Kamala Satyanandan is the writer of Stories from Indian Christian Life. So here if you look at the options, we can say that A can be matched with 2, B can be matched with 1, C can be matched with 4, and D can be matched with 3. So the correct answer is option B. Okay, so now let's move on to the next question, which is again a match the following question, where you have to identify the author with the relative text. And here you can find that all these writers, Zeno Casey, Dylan Thomas, Terence Rattigan, Arnold Wesker, J.M. Sinch, all the writers, they belong to this modern age, and you have to identify the important work written by them. So I'm talking about Jerusalem, the Winslow Boy, Juno and the Peacock, In the Shadow of the Glen, Under Milkwood. So if you look at the correct match, we can find that Zeno of Cassie is the author of Juno and the Peacock, and then we have Dylan Thomas. Dylan Thomas is the writer of Under Milkwood, and then we have Terence Rattigan, and Terence Rattigan is the author of The Winslow Boy. And then we have Arnold Wesker. Arnold Wesker is the author of I'm Talking About Jerusalem, and J.M. Sinch, who is the author of In the Shadow of the Glen. So these are the correct options. So once again, A can be matched with option 3, B can be matched with option 5, Z can be matched with option 2, D can be matched with option 1, and E can be matched with option 4. So let's look at the options. So A3, B5, C2, D1, E4, which comes as answer option B. So the correct answer is option B. Okay, now another question, which is a short story question. Who is the author of the short story Beethoven Was 1/16th Black? Beethoven was 1/16th Black. As I said earlier, after they have added this module called short stories and non-fiction, you can expect such questions from short stories and non-fiction. So Beethoven Was 1/16th Black is the short story. It is written by Nadine Gordimer. Okay, so Nadine Gordimer, we know about him. He's a South African writer and a political activist, and he is the author of the short story Beethoven Was 1/16th Black. Which of these constitute the preoccupations of the protagonist of Ubhamanyu Chatterjee's English August? Okay, which of these constitute the preoccupations of the protagonist of Ubhamanyu Chatterjee's English August? So again, this belongs to this Indian English literature, and the correct answer is marijuana. Okay, so that's one of the common theme that you can find in this work, that is marijuana. And again, another thing that you can find here is Marcus Aurelius. Okay, so marijuana and Marcus Aurelius are the preoccupations of the protagonist of this particular work, August, written by Ubhamanyu Chatterjee. So you might be familiar with this work. So the correct answer is marijuana and Marcus Aurelius. So that comes as the option A, that is A and D only. So moving to the next question, which of the following are features of the theatre of the absurd? Which of the following are the features of the theatre of the absurd? So again, this is a direct question which you can answer if you have a clear-cut idea about the theatre of absurd. Emphasis on the central role of God in the universe, presentation of futile actions and devoid of any goal. So emphasis on the central role of God in the universe, we know that that is not at all the concern of absurd theatre. Then presentation of futile actions devoid of any goal. That's a very correct example. If you look at the works of Samuel Beckett, these all comes, this is actually the central theme, presentation of the futile actions devoid of any goal. And then we have portrayal of situation that point to the meaningfulness of the life, and then lacking in conflicts and dramatic tensions, presenting players in a stasis or drift without definite role. So here one thing is that all these options sound confusing, but if you give a clear-cut thought, then it would be really easy for you to answer the questions. So these are the correct answers. So we know here D and E are also correct along with B. So the correct answer is option D, B, D and E only. So the correct answer is option D. Coming to the next question, in an apology for poetry, Sidney discusses the didactic function of poetry by comparing it to philosophy and what? So, apology for poetry, Sidney, we have covered this work in literary criticism. So, we know about Philip Sidney, who is regarded to be a middle-aged critic of English literature, and in his apology for poetry, which is written as a response to Stephen Gossen's School of Abuse, he actually compares the function of poetry by comparing it to philosophy and history. So we have learned about the comparison between poetry, history and philosophy. So here the correct answer is option C, that is history. Which of these does Meenakshi Mukherjee propose as the possible target readership of early Indian English novels? So, in this question paper, you can find many questions from Indian English literature. And so here, this is a question regarding Meenakshi Mukherjee. And but the thing is that this is not a fiction tale, but it's regarding the non-fiction side of Indian English literature. And the correct answer is a British readership and the colonial administrator in India. Okay, so that is the possible target readership of the early Indian English novel, a British readership and the colonial administrator in India. So the correct answer is option C and D, which comes as option A. Now, moving to the next question, who among the following is the founder of the Survey of English Usage? This is a question that belongs to language and pedagogy. So, the correct options are, the options given are Brian Garner, Henry Watson Fowler, Michael Swan and Randolph Quirk. Okay, so here the correct answer, that is the founder of the Survey of English Usage, is Randolph Quirk. Okay, so the answer is option D. Now, which two of the following are true according to the documentation style prescribed by the 8th edition of the MLA handbook? So, this actually belongs to the research methodology where you can expect questions from the MLA format, 7th and 8th edition, and this is regarding the 8th edition of the MLA handbook, which is normally followed by all the institutions in India. So, you have to identify the correct answer. And if the title page of a book contains an imprint as well as the publisher's name, omit the imprint and the use of publisher's name. While giving a URL, copy it from the Brave browser, but omit this. If a quotation extends to more than 5 lines, set it off from the text as block indented an inch from the left margin. Long title should be abbreviated using the first letter of the keywords typed in uppercase without intervening space. Okay, so here the correct answer is option A, that is A and B only. Now, moving to the next question, which of the following are novels by Ian McEwan? So, we know about Ian McEwan. He's a postmodern age writer and you have to identify the novels written by him. Again, this is a direct question because Ian McEwan is a very famous postmodern age writer and also his work. For example, if you look at the works of Atonement, Atonement is considered to be the must-read work when it comes to net and also from an English literature perspective. So, one work is Atonement and the other work written by Ian McEwan is The Child in Time. Okay, so Atonement and The Child in Time. So A and C comes as option A. Okay, so now moving to the next question, arrange the following language areas of the human brain in the order in which they involve in hearing, understanding and saying a word. So this comes as a part of English language teaching, that comes as another part of language and pedagogy. So where you have to identify them in their correct order, hearing, understanding and saying, and you have to arrange the following areas of the human brain in the order in which they involve here. So we have arcuate fasciculus, anterior speech cortex, motor cortex and posterior speech cortex. So the correct, if we arrange it, we can say that the first thing that comes here would be posterior speech cortex, which is followed by arcuate fasciculus, which is again followed by anterior speech cortex and finally by motor cortex. So here the correct options are D, A, B and C. That comes as the option D. So the correct answer is option D. Next, arrange the following journals in the chronological order in which they started publication. Arrange the following journals in the chronological order in which they started publication. So we have did several videos on magazines and the chronological order in which they are published. So this would be easy for the students who have viewed that video. So we have the Tatler, the Examiner, the Review and the Spectator. So if we look at the correct order in which they were published, we can find that the first journal to be published here is the Review. So the Review followed by the Tatler, followed by the Examiner and by the Spectator. So Review, Tatler, Examiner and Spectator. So we can say that C, A, B and D, and C, A, B and D comes as option C. So the correct answer is option C. Next question. This is again a very direct question because Shyam Selvadurei's Funny Boy, this was repeatedly asked for NTA exam. So if you have looked at the previous questions, this question is like a very direct question where you can easily answer the question. Which of these best describes Shyam Selvadurei's novel Funny Boy? So the correct answer is coming of an age novel. Okay, the correct answer is coming of age novel. And if you want to answer this question correctly, you have to have a clear-cut idea about the distinction between the different types of genres when it comes to novel. Okay, so this is a coming of age novel where it tells a story about the protagonist from his young days to his maturity of his physical, spiritual and moral maturity. So the correct answer is option A, coming of age novel. So list 1 and list 2, again another match the following question where you have to identify the character with the novels in which they appear. So we have Vincent Smith, Paul Morrell, Whiskey Priest, Leopard Bloom and Paul Pennyfeather. So if you look at this, some of the works would be very common for you, like the Leopard Bloom or Paul Morrell, because we know that Paul Morrell is a central character in Sons and Lovers. Similarly, Leopard Bloom is the central character in Ulysses. So we know such types of easy things. And if you look at here, and again Vincent Smith, he appears in 1984 by George Orwell, again another famous work. And then we have these Whiskey Priest who appears in the Power and the Glory. And finally Paul Pennyfeather who appears in Decline and the Fall. So if you make the match, we can find that A can be matched with 1984, A can be matched with 3, B can be matched with 1, C can be matched with 5, D can be matched with 2 and E can be matched with 1. So the correct answer is option the correct answer is option B, that is A3, B1, C5, D2 and E4. So that is the correct answer, option B. So next question. Which among the following are the works of George Gissing? New Grub Street, Agnes Grey, The Odd Women, Mary Barton. New Grub Street, Agnes Grey, The Odd Women and Mary Barton. So George Gissing, we know that he's a late Victorian age or an early modern age writer, and among here you have to identify the works of George Gissing. So New Grub Street and The Odd Women are the works written by George Gissing. So the correct answer is option A and C, and that comes as the option number B. Okay. Another statement question. Statement 1. In Waiting for Godot, it is Vladimir who questions a boy who comes from Godot towards the end of the 2 acts. And statement 2. In Waiting for Godot, it is Estrogen who says nothing happens, nobody comes, nobody goes and it's awful. So this is a statement question from Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, and you can answer this question because this can also be considered to be a direct question, but you just have to put your effort, you have to be patient, you have to be cool, and then you can derive the answer. So this is statement 1 and the statement 2. So here you can find that both these statements are true. It is Vladimir who questions the boy and is Estrogen who says the very remarkable statement, nothing happens, nobody comes, nobody goes, it's awful, because this is regarded to be one of the quite very famous expression that is used to express the absurdism and also existentialism. So this is Vladimir and Estrogen. So we can say that both statement 1 and statement 2 are true. So the correct answer is option B. Next question. In Noam Chomsky's definition of grammar, which 2 features are drawn from mathematics? So we know about Noam Chomsky. He is a psychoanalytic critic who belongs to this literary theory. And we have we have learned about his ideologies regarding competence, performance, and universal grammar. So here the question is regarding the features that are drawn from mathematics. So it is complexity, abstraction, transformation, and generation. So the correct answers are option C and D. And option C and D comes as option number D. So the correct answer is option D. Now coming to the next question, which of the following statements is true of the working group set up by the University Grants Commission in 1978 to study the medium of instruction in higher education? So this is a question regarding UGC, and this belongs to this English in India, a new module added by NTA, and where you have to identify the correct statement. So it argued that English as a highly developed language was best suited for India's industrial and scientific progress, and we know that option A itself is correct, and therefore the correct answer to this question is option A. Okay, so that is regarding UGC. And then coming to the next question, which two of the following are works written by Gustave Flaubert? So you have to identify the works written by him. So Gustave Flaubert, he is a French writer, and therefore he belongs to this European literature. And the options are The Temptation of Saint Anthony, All Goriad, Therese Raquin, and Sentimental Education. So the correct answer is The Temptation of Saint Anthony and Sentimental Education. These are the two works written by Gustave Flaubert. So the correct answer is option A and D. A and D appears as option number B. So the correct answer is option B. Now, which of these poets wrote a poem that served to inspire W.B. Yeats to write his own poem, When You Are Old? So, we know that W.B. Yeats has written the poem, When You Are Old. He is a modern age writer, and then you have to identify which poet wrote a poem that inspired W.B. Yeats in order to write this particular poem. So, we cannot consider this to be a direct question, because if you were asked who is the author of When You Are an Old, it would be easier to answer W.B. Yeats, but here you have to identify the inspiration of Yeats, and the correct answer is Per de Ronsard. So, that's the correct answer, Per de Ronsard. That is option D. Now coming to the next question, in Mr. Bennet and Mrs. Brown, Virginia Woolf, so we know that Mr. Bennet and Mrs. Brown, it's an essay written by Virginia Woolf, so it comes into the feminist theory, analyzes the state of and also literary criticism. So you have to identify the correct statement made by her, or what she actually does in this particular work. Analyzes the state of modern fiction by contrasting two generations of writers. So we know that that is a correct statement. Criticizes book buying preferences of the educated English class? No. Presents modernity as a stable and coherent project uniting all artists? No. Responds to E.M. Forster's remarks on character in fiction? No. So the correct answer is option A. Analyzes the state of modern fiction by contrasting two generations of writers. Even in her essay Modern Fiction, that's what she is doing, contrasting and comparing the two writers, the people who belong to the early modern page or the Victorian age and to the modern age writers. So the correct answer is option A. Next question, who is the author of the essay What is in Literature? Who is the author of the essay What is in Literature? E.D. Hirsch, Hans Georg Gadamer, Paul Ricoeur, and Terry Eagleton. So, what is in literature? It's an essay written by E.D. Hirsch. So, the correct answer is option A. Again, this belongs to the non-fiction module that was recently added by NTA. Then, given below are two statements. Statement 1, New Historicism stipulates that teleological connotations of history have to be eschewed. New Historicism neither denies nor accepts totalizing explanations of historical events. So, this is a question from literary theory of New Historicism. So, and this is a direct question, it's not regarding any authors, a direct question. If you know about New Historicism and introduction to New Historicism, you would be able to answer this question. So, here we know that New Historicism stipulates that teleological connotations of history has to be eschewed. That's a right statement. But statement 2, that it is neither denies nor accepts totalizing explanation of historical events, that is regarded to be a false statement. So, the correct answer is option D. Statement 1 is true, but statement 2 is false. Then, what might the speaker mean when he addresses time in a Shakespearean sonnet and declares that I will be true despite thy shade and thee? Okay, so this is regarding the Shakespearean sonnet, and where you have to identify what does actually time means in Shakespeare's work. I will be true despite thy shade and thee. So these are the options. Time preserves human life. With time comes change. Time creates opportunities and time removes human life. So if you want to answer this question, first thing is that you have to have an idea about Shakespeare and the sonnets, the different themes that he speaks in his particular work, etc. And also we can say that if this cannot be considered to be a direct question, but as I said earlier, if you are relaxed, if you have time to think, then you can derive the answer from what you have already known, because Shakespearean sonnet, it speaks about the fickleness of time, and it considered time to be very degrading, killing up of the beauty, etc. So we can say that with time comes change and time removes human life. That would be the correct answer. That is option B and D. And that comes as the option C. Now moving to the next question, which is again a statement question, and this is regarding language and pedagogy, because it's a study of linguistics. Linguistics, being primarily interested in the scientific study of language, approach language dispassionately. Linguistics are necessarily polyglots who bring their own biases to language. So here we have to say that the first statement, that is linguistics, they are primarily interested in the scientific study of language. It approach language dispassionately. It's an objective study. So we can say that statement 1 is right. But regarding statement 2, linguistics are necessarily polyglots who bring their own basis to language study. That's an incorrect statement. So statement 1 is correct and statement 2 is incorrect, and that comes as option C. So the correct answer is option C. Arrange the following essays in the chronological order of publication. T.S. Eliot, The Function of Criticism; Edgar Allan Poe, The Philosophy of Composition; Henry James, The Art of Fiction; Virginia Woolf, The Modern Fiction. So these are the correct answer, and you have to identify the questions in the chronological order. So all this actually belongs to the non-fiction works, because all these writers, they like Henry James, Virginia Woolf, T.S. Eliot, Edgar Allan Poe, all these writers, they belong to this modern age. But the thing is that, except Edgar Allan Poe, but the thing is that this comes or the questions that are asked from them is regarding the non-fiction. So you have to identify the publication years in which these essays were published. So we can say that the first work to be published here would be Edgar Allan Poe, because he actually belongs to the Romantic age of American literature, and then followed by Henry James, The Art of Fiction, followed by Virginia Woolf's Modern Fiction, and T.S. Eliot's The Function of Criticism. So that would be the correct order, B, C, D and A, and that comes as option B. Now moving to the next question, which of the following does the Subaltern Studies Project contain? Which of the following does the Subaltern Studies Project contain? Traditional historiography celebrated the role of the subalterns. Traditional history of India's freedom movement celebrates the contribution of selected icons. Traditional historiography highlights the dominant strands of India's freedom struggle, and subaltern studies historiography highlights the dominant strands of India's freedom struggle. So we know that subaltern studies is actually belong to the post-colonial theory under literary theory, and it can be associated with Antonio Gramsci, Gayatri Spivak, etc. And you have to identify the correct statement regarding the subaltern project among the options. So we know that the correct options would be option B and C, that is traditional history of India's freedom movement celebrates the contribution of selected icons. They are not celebrating the freedom of everyone, or as we say, the history is often said by the ones that won. Traditional historiography highlights the dominant strands of India's freedom struggle. So these are the two things that subaltern project contains to, option B and C, and that comes as option C. So the right answer is option C. Which of the following clusters is associated with what Julia Kristeva terms the semiotic? So this comes under literary theory, and that too under feminist theory. So it's the question is regarding Julia Kristeva and the term semiotic, where you have to identify the clusters that comes under this particular term semiotics. So here we can find that the correct answer would be displacement, slippage and condensation. Displacement, slippage and condensation. So that would be the correct answer. So the answer is option B. According to Longinus, which two of the following qualities apply to great poetry? So, Longinus and on the Sublime, this comes under literary theory, and that too of the literary criticism, and that too of this Roman critics. So, where you have to identify the qualities of this great poetry. And we can say it must be the work of a genius and inspired person. It must cause a feeling of melancholy in the reader. It must employ devices of rhetoric. It must please selectively and on special occasion. So these are the correct answers, and here we can say that the correct option is option A, that is A and C only. It must be the work of genius and inspired person. It must employ devices of a rhetoric. If you look at the qualities of the Sublime, you would get this answer. So this can also be considered to be a direct question. Now, coming to the next question, this is again named as the following question regarding the text and the author, where you have to identify the text with its corresponding author. Modernity at large, the tourist gaze, culture and imperialism, the Black Jacobins, and the authors are J. Urey, E. W. Said, and CLR James and A. Appadure. So these are the writers, and all these works, it actually speaks about post-colonial theory, and we can say that all these works, it comes under post-colonial theory under literary theory. And the correct answer, if we look at here, it would be Modernity at Large, written by A. Appadure, The Tourist Gaze, written by we can say J. Urey, Culture and Imperialism, written by E. W. Said, and The Black Jacobins, written by J. Urey. Okay, so Black Jacobins, written by CLR James. So that would be the correct option, A4, B1, C2 and D3, and that comes as the option C, A4, B1, C2 and D3. So the correct answer is option C. With which of these is Ngugi wa Thiong'o generally associated? So we know about Ngugi wa Thiong'o. He belongs to post-colonial literature, that is, he is an African writer, and you might be very familiar with him because he is the author of A Grain of Wheat, which is regarded to be one of his most important work. And from all the works of Ngugi wa Thiong'o, you have to identify the common themes in which he has written. So that is the question. So here the correct options are decolonizing the body, decolonizing the mind, polity and the state. So the correct answer would be mind, because he speaks about how the white people conquers the ideology of the black people and how they get to serve the other. So the correct answer is option B, decolonizing the mind. Who among the following played the most significant role in mobilizing the concept of cultural intermediaries? Who among the following played the most significant role in mobilizing the concept of cultural intermediaries? So again, this comes, we know about the correct answer is Bourdieu, and here we can find that he is actually a Marxist, and therefore this actually belongs to Marxism of literary theory. Who among the following played the most significant role in mobilizing the concept of cultural intermediaries? The correct answer is Bourdieu. So the answer is option C. Now again, another match the following question, where you have to identify the poet with its language. So we have Charles Baudelaire, Henry Chain, Sylvia Plath and Jos Barty, and where you have to identify the nationalities to which they actually belong. So we know about Sylvia Plath, and we know that Sylvia Plath is actually the English writer here, and then we have Charles Baudelaire, again a French writer, Henry Cheney, a German writer, and Jos Marti, a Spanish writer. So this is like A1, B2, C3 and D4. So that comes as option A. Then, who among the following Dickens characters appears as a ghost? So this is what I normally say to everyone after this NTA exams. Charles Dickens, it's very important because even in the previous questions, you can find a number of questions asked from Charles Dickens, and Charles Dickens has written a large number of novels, but you can expect questions from the year of the publications, the characters, and the parallel works. So like such types of any sort of questions can be expected from Charles Dickens. So here is also a detailed question where which character appear as a ghost in Charles Dickens' works. So the correct answer is Jacob Marley. Okay, so Jacob Marley, he appears as a ghost in Christmas Carol. So the correct answer is option D. So next question, which of these constitutes the only extant trilogy from ancient Greek tragedy? So here this is actually a question that comes from the different works of European literature and especially the Greek writers, where you have to identify the only extant trilogy from the ancient Greek tragedy, and the correct answer would be Agamemnon, Choephori and Eumenides. So this would be the correct answer. So the answer is option A. Moving to the next question, who among the following considered paraphrase as a heresy? Who among the following considered paraphrase as a heresy? Clent Brooks, Edmund Wilson, I.A. Richards and Percy Lubbock. So we know that heresy is paraphrase as a heresy is normally associated with Clent Brooks, who actually belongs to this new criticism that comes under literary theory. So the correct answer is option A, Clent Brooks. And again, this is a very direct question because anyone who has gone through new criticism would know that Clent Brooks is associated with paraphrase of heresy. Now, which of the following are poems by Nazim Ezekiel that make fun of Indians' use of English? Okay, so here we know about Nazim Ezekiel, who has written different large number of poems regarding the colonization of the colonizations of the Indians, how they regard highly of the English language and English literature. So here, so these are the question has given 5 options, and where you have to identify the number of poems in which he makes fun of the India's use of English. So the correct answer is, we know that Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa Tears, that's is written in broken English, which actually teases the attitude of Indians regarding English, and then is a very Indian poem in Indian English. So these are the 2 poems in which Nazim Ezekiel make fun of India's use of English, A and C. So that comes as option A. Now, who among the following edited the Cornhill magazine? So, we know the correct answer is William Makepeace Thackeray. Thackeray, he is actually a Victorian poet, and this therefore belongs to this Victorian group of magazine, that is the Cornhill magazine, and William Makepeace Thackeray was known for his edition of this Cornhill magazine. So, the correct answer is option D. Which 2 of the following writers does A.D. Hope addresses through his poetic responses in A Book of Answers? So A.D. Hope is the Australian poet, and you have to identify, or Australian writer, and you have to identify who are the other writers addressed by A.D. Hope in his work A Book of Answers. So here the options are A. Tolstoy, B. Dostoevsky, C. Mallarmé and D. Goethe, and the correct answer is option the correct answers are Tolstoy and Mallarmé. So these are the 2 writers who are addressed by A.D. Hope as a response in A Book of Answers. So the correct answer is option A and C, that comes as option A. So the answer is option A. Arrange the following terms in the chronological order of the use in literary theory. Okay, so here these are the 4 literary concepts, theoretical concepts, and you have to identify the chronological order in which they appear. So the first thing, if you look at the previous videos of our website, you can find that of our YouTube channel, you can find that while covering the chronological questions, there was a similar question that was asked for the previous exam, where they gave 4 or 5 concepts regarding literary theory, and then you have to identify to which theory these concepts actually belong to, and then you have to chronologically place it. So if you haven't watched the video, just have a go, so you will get an idea about how to crack these chronological questions and what are the different types of questions that you can expect from chronology. So the correct answer, if we look at the chronological order of the use, and we will be dealing with these questions individually in the upcoming videos in different forms. So if you have any doubts regarding that, you can go through it. So the correct option, so the correct order here would be, the first one is negritude. Negritude followed by Genesis, followed by scriptable, and then finally by the first one would be negritude, followed by Genesis, followed by paratext, and followed by scriptable. Okay, so the correct answer would be option C, that is C, A, D and B. So that is correct answer, option C, C, D, B and B. And then we will be dealing with what these concepts are and the theories in which they belong. Now coming to the next question. Again, this is a match the following question where you have to identify the authors and the form in which they wrote the works. Okay, you have to identify the writers and the different forms in which they wrote the work. So we have Pinter, Menander, Sappho and Aristophanes, and you have to, and all these writers, you know, they actually belong to this European literature. So all these forms, they were the different forms propagated by the European writers. So we have this, so these are the correct options. And then let's look at the question. Pinter, Menander, Sappho and Aristophanes. So Pinter, he wrote in the format of epinisia. So that was what Pinter was known for. You have heard about Pinter's etc. So Pinter, he wrote in the form of epinisia. And then we have Menander, who wrote in the format of New Comedy. Okay, so Menander, he wrote in the format of New Comedy. Then we have Sappho, who wrote in the format of lyric poetry, and Aristophanes, who wrote in the format of old comedy. Okay, so the correct answer is option B, that is A1, B4, C3 and D2. So poets with their forms in which they have written. So the correct answer is option B. From who does Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak borrow the term subaltern? So we know it's again a very direct question, because Gayatri Spivak and his subaltern, if you know about that, it would be very familiar to you that he has derived, she took this term from Antonio Gramsci, because it was Antonio Gramsci who used the subaltern to define or to call for the proletariat people in his area. And therefore the correct answer is option D, Antonio Gramsci. Which of these did Wood's Dispatch seek to propagate? So we know about Wood's Dispatch 1854. This belongs to English in India, and this is very important. Wood's Dispatch is regarded to be the Magna Carta of Indian education, and you have to identify which of these things did Wood's Dispatch propagate. Impart Western knowledge to Indians, that's a correct statement. Restrict access to English learning in India, that is not. Educate British officers in Sanskrit and Persia, that is also a wrong statement. Create a class of public servants, that's a right statement. So A and D are the correct options, and that comes as option C. So the correct answer is option C. Next question. What 19th century philosophical term of Russian origin did Friedrich Nietzsche use to describe the disintegration of traditional morality in Western society? So we have covered the topic of Friedrich Nietzsche in Victorian age critics, in literary criticism. So the question is regarding the philosophical. So we know about Nietzsche, who is actually a very great philosopher, and we are now going to identify the philosophical term that he used to describe the disintegration of the traditional morality in Western society. And the correct term that he used here is nihilism, because nihilism actually means believing in nothing, nothing exists. So that is what he uses to describe, that is nihilism. So the correct answer is option D. Who among the following is known to have used elements from the Yakshagana tradition in his theatre? So this is regarding the theatre, that is drama, which comes under Indian English literature. So you have to identify the correct answer, and it would be very familiar because Yakshagana tradition that was made popular by Girish Karnad. Okay, so the correct answer is option C, that is Girish Karnad. Which of these plays by Girish Karnad shares its theme with Thomas Mann's The Transposed Heads? Which of these plays by Girish Karnad shares its theme with Thomas Mann's The Transposed Heads? So now you can find that there were two questions asked from Girish Karnad, and Girish Karnad, the Indian dramatist, we know that his work, The Transposed Heads, it's taken from the work of Thomas Mann, and Girish Karnad's Hayavadana is taken from the transposed heads. Okay, so that is the correct answer, option D, Hayavadana. Which of the following words refers to the sound that is associated with a particular meaning? So this actually comes from this language and pedagogy module. So you have to identify the word that refers to a sound associated with a particular meaning, and the answer is option C, that is phonestheme. Okay, phonestheme is the word that is associated with a particular meaning. Now coming to another question. So this is a question regarding T.S. Eliot. So we know about T.S. Eliot and the function of criticism. It belongs to literary criticism, where T.S. Eliot is considered to be a modern age critic. And the question is, in the function of criticism, he attacked two critics, that is Middleton Murray and some of the other critics, for being devotees of dash. Okay, so he criticizes them for being the devotees of the inner voice. Okay, so that is the correct answer, the inner voice. He criticizes Murray for being the devotee of inner voice in his particular essay, The Function of Criticism. So the correct answer is option A. Now, next question. What was the name of the journal published from Bowling Green University beginning 1969, which carried essays on amusement parks, comics and detective films? Okay, so here this is a postmodern journal, and this was published by the Bowling. So you have got three points, or you have got three clues. One is it's a journal from Bowling Green University. Third one, beginning in 1969, and it essays on amusement parks, comics and detective films. So you have given 4 clues and you have to identify the correct work. So here you can find that the name of the journal is Journal of Popular Culture. Okay, and this comes as one of the examples of the propagation or the development of cultural studies, and if you look at the journal, it comes as an example of this popular culture. So the answer is option C. So coming to the next question. Statement 1. Unlike scientific research, literary research does not have specific materials for investigation and scientific tools for reaching a conclusion and formulating a theory. That's a wrong statement. And again, literary research consists of critical interpretations of an author's work to the exclusion of biography and editing of text. That's again another wrong statement. So this is actually, it speaks about the difference between the scientific research and literary research that comes under research methodology. So we can say that both the statement 1 and statement 2 are incorrect, and that is option B. Which two of the following conform to liberal humanist thoughts? Literature transcends the limits of the age of its origin and so is timeless. So this is again a general question coming from liberal humanism. Literature is untouched by the essential human nature which is unchanging. That's a wrong statement. Literature is devoid of any purpose to enhance life or promote human values. That is also a very wrong statement. Identity is a unique essence unaffected by environment and society. That is also a correct statement. So the correct answer is option A and D. A and D can be considered to be a clear-cut definitions of liberal humanism. So let's look at the option. A and D comes as option B. So the correct answer is option B. Who among the following is said to have believed that the Persian Gulf War never happened? So you might have heard of the title, the Gulf War did not take place, the Gulf War will not take place. So these are the works written by Baudrillard. Okay, and because that actually shows about the influence of media and all. So this comes under postmodernism, under literary theory. So the correct answer is option B, that is John Baudrillard. Now, arrange the following text in the chronological order of publication. Again, another work that comes from non-fiction works and chronology. So here you have to identify the correct statement. So as I said earlier, you have to identify the author who published this work and the year of publication in order to answer such questions. So the correct answer, the first work to be published here would be The Feminine Mist. Okay, so that would be the first work, The Feminine Mist, followed by Sexual Politics, followed by This Bridge Call My Back, followed by Gender Trouble. So the correct answer would be D, B, A and C, and that comes as an option D. So the correct answer is option D. Which of these does the book How to Read Donald Duck identify as an important element in its analysis of imperialist ideology in the Walt Disney comic book? Okay, so this is again another example of post-colonial literature where you have to identify regarding the imperialism and the globalization. So this is also a part of postmodern age analysis. So you have to identify the correct answer, and the answer is noble savage. So that's the that can be considered to be how to read the important element in the analysis of this imperialist ideology in Walt Disney's comic book Noble Savage. So the correct answer is option C. Which of the following statements best describes Terry Eagleton's views on literature? So we know about Terry Eagleton. He's a very famous Marxist, and therefore he comes under literary theory. So you have to identify the correct statement. It is closely allied to religion in its significance and seriousness. No, that's a wrong statement. It is involved in the reproduction of dominant social order. That's a correct statement. Its primary purpose is to produce beauty and pleasure. That's a correct statement. Its raison d'etre is to reflect social reality directly. So the correct answer is option B. That's a right statement regarding Terry Eagleton and literature. Now, which of the following conform to Northrop Frye's typology of literature? So we know about Northrop Frye. He is actually the founder of archetypal literary criticism, and you have to identify the work in which you can find about Northrop Frye's typology of literature. Mythology of spring, mythos of summer, mythos of autumn, and mythos of winter. So here the correct answer would be comedy and tragedy. That is mythos of spring comedy, mythos of autumn tragedy. That is A and C. So the correct answer is option B. That is A and C. Now, given below are two statements. One is labeled as assertion A and the other is labeled as reason R. Assertion A: postmodern narratives focus on the indeterminate and unstable nature of textuality and subjectivity. Reason R: postmodern narrative acts regard narratives and characters as tentative representations of writing and identity. So, this is regarding the features and the characteristics of postmodern literature and postmodern narratives. So you have to identify the correct statement. So here we can find that while we are answering this assertion reason question, at first you have to look whether both the statements are true, and then you have to look whether the reason is a perfect reasoning of the assertion. But here you can find that both the statements are true, but here reason has nothing to do with the assertion. So that comes as option C. That is, both A and R are true, but R is not the correct explanation of A. So the correct answer is option C. Now, in politics and English language, which two of the following tricks are mentioned by George Orwell as bad habits of English use? Again, you can find that this is a work written by George Orwell, but it belongs to the non-fiction genre. So you have seen more than 10 questions from this non-fiction. So it's very important. Apart from fiction, poetry, drama, non-fiction works are also very important from an NTA perspective. So which are the two bad habits of English usage? The correct answer is pretentious diction and dying metaphors. Pretentious diction and dying metaphors, that is B and C. That comes as option B. So the correct answer is option B. Now, match the following with list 1 and list 2. The Tory Fox Hunter, What I Believe, The Death of the Moth, and Of Ambition. And the list 2 are Francis Bacon, Joseph Addison, E.M. Forster, Virginia Woolf. Again, another work that comes from this non-fiction genre of literature. And here you have to identify the correct option. So list 1 is the works written by them, and the list 2 you have to identify the corresponding authors. So here the Tory Fox Hunter, that's a work written by Joseph Addison. Then What I Believe, that's a work written by E.M. Forster. The Death of the Moth, written by Virginia Woolf. Of Ambition, written by Francis Bacon. So the correct answer is, if we look at the options, we can say that A2, B3, C4 and D1. That is option B. Okay, that comes as option B. Now, arrange the following periodicals in the chronological order in which they started publication. The Spectator, the Tatler, the Rambler, the Critical Review. The Spectator, the Tatler, the Rambler and the Critical Review. And we have already spoke about the questions about the magazine. So here you have to identify the correct statement. So here we can find that the first one to be published is the Tatler, followed by the Spectator, followed by the Rambler, and followed by the Critical Review. So as I said earlier, if you look at the chronological questions, you would get an idea about how you can expect questions for the next time, and also the importance of the magazines. We have covered that topic, so just go through it, you will get a clear-cut idea. And so the correct answer, if we say it would be B, A, C and D, that will be option C. Okay, so the correct answer is option C. Now moving to the next question. Which two of the following concepts are deployed in the work of Fredric Jameson? Okay, so we know about Fredric Jameson. He's a postmodern writer, and also he's a critic who belongs to a theorist who belongs to postmodernism. So we can find that he employed two of the famous postmodern features or characteristics in his works, and you have to identify them. So the correct answer is pastiche and schizophrenia. So that would be the two features or the concepts that you could find in the works of Jameson. So A and C, that comes as option B. So the correct answer would be option B. So next question, and this would be considered to be a very difficult question for a few, because you have to identify the poem in which the work appears, and then you have to identify the poet. Okay, so courage, he said, and pointed toward the land. And we know that courage, he said, and pointed toward the land, that is actually the poem written by Alfred Lord Tennyson. And I am poor brother Lippo. You might identify it because of this Lippo, Fra Lippo Lippi. So this work, that means I am a poor brother Lippo. This is actually written by Robert Browning. I caught this morning's minion. You might be familiar with these lines because of its alliteration, morning's minion. So I caught this morning's minion. It's written by G.M. Hopkins. Look in my face, my name is Might Have Been. Okay, and that work is written by D.J. Rossetti. And the sea is calm tonight, and that work is written by Matthew Arnold. So that would be the correct option. So if you speak about it, A2, B5, C1, D3 and E4, and that comes as an option B. So the right answer to it is option B. Now, in comparative philology and sometimes in modern phonology, what is a term used to refer to the deletion of a vowel with a word? And this comes as language and pedagogy, and the correct answer is syncope. So syncope is the term used to refer to the deletion of a vowel within a word. Who is the author of the essay Lear, Tolstoy and the Fool? So this is regarding King Lear. This is a work written by William Shakespeare's King Lear. So who is the author of the essay Lear, Tolstoy and the Fool? The answer is George Orwell, the modern age writer. So this again is another non-fiction work. Who among the following compared the mind in creation to a fading coal? The mind in creation to a fading coal. So this is if you look at the options, you can find that this is a romantic age feature where you compare the mind in creation to a fading coal, and the correct answer to this question is Shelley. It was Shelley who gave this metaphor of comparing the mind in creation to a fading coal. So the correct answer is option C, that is Shelley. Who among these does Gabriel Garcia Marquez name right in the beginning of his Nobel Prize address? So he speaks about another famous writer, and that is Antonio Pigafetta. So who among these does Gabriel Garcia Marquez name right in the beginning of his Nobel Prize address? So we know that Marquez, he got the Nobel Prize, and in his address he actually addressed two important writers. So that is where you have to identify the writers. So the answer is Ferdinand Magellan and Antonio Pigafetta. So we know about Marquez. He is a Colombian writer, a very famous writer. And in his Nobel Prize, he addresses Magellan and Pigafetta. So the correct answer is option A and D only. That is answer 1. That is answer A. Now coming to the next question, who among the following represents the global spread of English diagrammatically as 3 concentric circles? Okay, who among the following represents the global spread of English diagrammatically as three concentric circle? Again, this belongs to this language and pedagogy, and the correct answer is Braj B. Kachru. Braj B. Kachru. So that is the correct answer. Moving on to the next question, which of these UK universities saw the first institutional incorporation of cultural studies? This belongs to the module cultural studies. It recently added module by NTA NET. So, which of these UK universities saw the first institutional incorporation of cultural studies? And while we were dealing with cultural studies, we spoke about the Birmingham University and the Frankfurt School. So, the correct answer is University of Birmingham. Okay, so the correct answer is option D. Empiricist linguistics is concerned with directly observable sense data, innate language knowledge, investigation of the human mind, reason as a determinant of inquiry. So this is again that comes from language and pedagogy, and the correct answer, that is empiricist linguistics, is concerned with directly observable sense data. If you know about empiricism, not forget linguistics, if you know about empiricism, you can answer this question. So the answer is option A. Arrange the following lines of poetry in the chronological sequence. Again, this would be a little bit hard question, because not little bit, a hard question, because you have to identify the first line with the poem, and then you have to identify the poet, and then you have to figure out their age in order to arrange them in a chronological order. But if you know about 2 or 3 poems like Daddy, I Have to Kill You, and these are all very famous works, and if you know about like After Great Pain, then it would be much more easier. So An Aged Man is but a paltry thing. It's from Sailing to Byzantium by W.B. Yeats. The World is Too Much with Us, it's by William Wordsworth. Daddy, I Have Had to Kill You. Just the word daddy can be associated with Sylvia Plath. And After Great Pain, a formal feeling comes. Again, pain can be associated with Emily Dickinson, but this would be a wide guess, I know. Then you have to identify it in chronological order, and we know that since this would be Wordsworth, that would be the correct first one, that is option B. And then we have to identify the next one, and that will be option D, that is Emily Dickinson. After great pain, a formal feeling comes. Then An Aged Man is but a paltry thing, and then followed by Daddy, I Have to Kill You. So we have to say that the answer is B, D, A and C, that is option A. Now, what was Poor Yorick in Hamlet? So, in Hamlet, there is a character called Poor Yorick. So, who is Poor Yorick? So, we know about Yorick from Hamlet's quotes when he laments at the gravedigger scene. So, Yorick was a jester. Okay, so that's again a direct question, because the gravedigger scene is very important in Hamlet. So, the correct answer is option C. Now, which of the following are true of performance as well as used in linguistics theory? So, we know about competence and performance. Recently, we have did a video on Noam Chomsky, a quick learn video on Noam Chomsky regarding competence and performance. So, you have to identify it. Okay, so it is analogous that Saussurean concept of long. It refers to the specific utterances of individual native speakers in actual situation. This is actually a question that has been repeated for multiple times. So it would be really easy for you to answer. And then it is innate grammar that suggests human universal ability to use language. It includes hesitations and unfinished structures arising out of psychological difficulties acting upon the speaker. So these are the options, and if you look at the options, we know that the correct options, the first one would be wrong, because long is the correct answer would be option B and D. Okay, the correct answer would be option B and D. Now you will be looking at the 10 questions that are asked from passage type of question. So in the previous exams, you can find that the passage questions like were you would be given a passage or a conversation or a poem, etc., and you will be asked 5 questions from it. But in right now in morning section and the afternoon section, you can find a difference in the pattern. Okay, you can find 10 questions from comprehension, where you were asked to answer from an article, from a play, from a poem, and from a novel. So you will be given 4 passages, or you would be given 4 contexts, and you have to answer the question. So I wouldn't be dealing much into it. Let's just look at the question. So this is the first passage that was given, and the question was, if selfhood of a poet is the subject of poetry, then originality shall spring from. So the correct answer is some truth of untruths. If you look at the passage, you will get the answer. The answer is option C, some truth of untruths. What is meant by traditional use of poetry? That is promoting joyous expectations. And in the context of the above, which is closest to being true, the correct answer is the poet himself may be the subject. So the correct answer is option D. So this was the first passage where you got 3 questions and you have to answer the questions. And the second one is a poem written by G.M. Hopkins, and you have to you have to answer 3 questions from this particular poem. Which 2 of the following are true? Not all knowing the intensity or depth of suffering, death does not put an end to our suffering. Suffering is seen as winds that hinder comfort. Suffering's intensity or depth is in the mind. So these are the correct options and you have to identify the answer. The correct answer is option A, that is A and D only. Beyond the intensity of non-grief, there can be only the twisted non-pain. So that's the correct answer. Which of the following best describes the meaning of the title of the poem, No Worse There Is None? So that's the title of G.M. Hopkins poems, and you can say that actually means nothing can be so bad as this. Okay, there is nothing bad as this that is yet to happen. So the correct answer is option D. And the next paraphrase would be from the Tess of the Uberville written by Thomas Hardy. And even if you read the passage much in detail, you wouldn't be able to answer this question. If you want to answer these 2 questions, you have to know about Thomas Hardy and Tess of the Ubervilles. Not Thomas Hardy as such, but you have to know what happens in the work Tess of the Uberville. Then only you would be able to answer this question. Who are the 2 speechless gazers? So here you can find that there is a question starts with 2 speechless gazers, and the correct answer are Lisa Lu and Angel Clark. But as I said, in order for you to answer this, you have to know who were there to witness the death of Tess. Then how did this sport with Tess end? She was hanged. So that's the end of this thing. She was hanged. So the answer is option A. And the next text would be from the lines from Shakespeare, The Tempest. So again, the question is, we are such stuff as dreams are made on wheels. Human life is full of imaginary colors. Our life is a text of what happened. There is no substance to human life and we are a bundle of past reality. The answer is option C. There is no substance to human life. And this insubstantial pageant refers to a non-real performance, enactment with support structure, the destroyed Mother Earth, the shutdown of the Globe Theatre. The answer is a non-real performance. Okay, so these are the questions that we have to deal with the the morning shift of NTA UGC NET of the previous year. And you have to know that all these questions, it was not that easy, but if you put some effort, there were some direct questions and you would get a clear-cut idea about your score if you watch this video. And so if you haven't downloaded your response sheet, and for those who have downloaded your response sheet, they can get a clear-cut idea about these questions and the answers. And also for the future students and for all the NET aspirants, I think they are looking at these questions would be very useful, because you will get an idea about how the questions appear, the patterns, the change of the patterns, like how important the chronological question, the statement questions, the massive following questions, and especially how to focus on this non-fiction work. So you will get a clear-cut idea about how to prepare if you watch, if you go through all the questions and the answers. So that's all for this video. Thank you.